welcome everyone to the awesome Crush Your Sales Goals in 2024. This is a bonus sales training which I'm providing today to celebrate the start of a new year. It's a new year, it's a new sales year. And so as part of this live training, I'm going to be covering with you some really key modules and sections so that you out there can get better sales results. Because for those of you that know me, my mission is to inspire and help others to improve their sales results and their outcomes through better technique, better strategy. And everything that I teach and train on are things that I have applied and leveraged in my own selling career of over 14 years in order to produce the best possible results for myself and also the companies where I have worked for. So for those of you that do not know me, I have a podcast called Aim High Awesome Leaders. I founded Awesome A-Team Sales in January 2022. And I am also a passionate saleswoman. So it's great to meet you today. Now, the first thing I'm going to be teaching and training you on is how to set good sales targets. So sales targets are essential. It's the aim of this training to actually teach and give you a clear sense of what to apply in order to hit and exceed your sales goals for next year. So the first thing I want to tell you, so this is in the workbook, which I've designed. So if you have a workbook, please get that out and go to page 2. If you do not have a workbook, make sure that you comment below and send me a message to receive a copy of the workbook. Now, in terms of a formula, which I can teach you, which is really simple and really helpful to use. A sales target needs to be related to your specific offering and the products and the value of what you sell. And so ultimately, one of the best ways to set a sales target is based on number of your average deal size. So I want to invite you to think about the average deal size that you have today, and then to think as well about your close rate and your conversion. Now, if you have a high conversion in sales, then your sales target can be relatively close to what your actual sales target is. But I'm looking to help you to set better targets. And part of that is really where we need to, so I would like to help you to allow more room within your sales target so that you have a much bigger pipeline and a much bigger sales goal than your actual sales target. Now, many people fall into the habit of waiting for their sales target to be issued and given to them. And then what tends to happen is that sellers go into a kind of reactive state of waiting for the assignment of their sales target. And what happens is they then lose time in the financial year by waiting for that target. Now, my advice is to set your own sales goal. So I'm going to call this a sales goal, which is based on the average deal size that you have. Then it's going to be times by the number of deals that you are looking to sell. So it's all got to be related to your offering and your conversion rate. So ultimately, if your sales goal is 1 million and your ratio of closing is, let's say, 30%, then you're going to need to make sure that it's closely associated with what you sell. So if the average deal size of what you sell is, for example, 10,000, then work out how many sales are required to get not just to 1 million, but to get you 70% higher than that, so that you allow enough room for any sales which you don't close. So my advice is always to set a sales goal for yourself, which is higher than your actual sales target. And if you're a business owner, even more important to have a revenue goal and a sales target, because again, if you are less focused on revenue and less focused on the amount you're selling and you don't have a target, I think we all know what happens. And this is a little bit on sales mindset. So your sales mindset is what you focus on expands and increases. So if you focus on, you set your sales target and you review that sales target at least a couple of times a week and your progress against it, again, that's going to give you clarity. It's going to make you a lot more focused on selling and sales activity than having no sales target at all. And here's the other thing as well, that we often are able and surprise ourselves because we can actually make a great deal more in terms of revenue than the amount that we perhaps think is possible. Or perhaps we just stop at the minimum. Perhaps we know how much we can earn and the amount of revenue we generate. And then again, we stop setting an ambition and a goal. And part of setting a good target is to have a lot in your pipeline, but it's also to recognize how many deals do you need? What's the average number of average deal size? What's your close ratio? And how many deals do you need to hit that? And then also, and I talk about this in the workbook as well, this is page 5, but your sales ambition. Ambition is important in sales because when you have an ambition, you are looking to achieve something way above and beyond perhaps what you have previously done. And of course, everything that we're looking to do in terms of developing and working on our sales is to exceed, reach our potential, push and stretch so that we are getting further. And part of the way that this is done is recognizing that in terms of our sales ambitions, these are for us to relate to our clients. So again, how today do you set an ambition? And are you focused on a sales ambition and goal, which is perhaps just related to you, your role, your immediate focus? And is that really selling as perhaps sales is about relationships? So again, how about thinking about your clients, the outcomes you want your clients to get, and setting something, shaping an ambition, which is really mutual? That would be my advice. Look to shape your ambition, look to make it mutual, look to have an ambition with each client you're looking to work with and make it really clear how it's value add for them. Now, another thing as part of this challenge is I'm inviting everyone to, so there is a free sales action plan, which I'm providing with this training. So if you don't have a copy of your sales action plan, you can comment below, or you can also send me an email. The best email address to email is going to be support, so SUPPORT at awesomeateamsales.com. So again, if you are looking for a sales action plan, make sure you reach out to me on that email. Now, for those of you that have your sales action plan in the workbook, my first exercise for you is to write out a goal, write out a sales goal, and remind yourself who's responsible, and that is you. And then think about the start date and the date you expect to complete that goal. And then also I'd like you to put down what are the resources that you need in order to hit this. This is going to really help you out because resources can be anything from people to materials, supplies, training. It could be all kinds of things. But make sure you're clear about what exact resources and materials that you will need. Now, there is one other thing as well, which I have put in this workbook and I'm providing as part of this training to really help sellers and those in sales careers and aspiring sellers to really maximize their sales potential. And this is the 30-day sales challenge. So this is an activity, a sales activity plan that I have created in order to help others to really stretch and maximize their selling time. So these activities can all be completed in just 60 minutes a day. So the idea is that you have 4 weeks and you could do this in January. And each day you're looking to achieve certain targets and numbers in terms of activities. So every single day I've given you an activity, I've given you a recommendation. Of course, you can take a Sunday off, and I've recommended at least one rest day on this 4-week 30-day challenge. Now, you might ask me, why have I put this 30-day challenge in here? Put this challenge in here so that you can beyond this training, continue and maximize your sales efforts, and also so that you know what to do. Because sometimes when we're looking to really change our sales behaviors, we just need clarity around exactly what can we do, what will make the difference. So I've made this really easy for you. I've really narrowed this down for you. You can literally just work from this. And this allows you, again, sometimes it's a little bit like when we're looking to train more, go to the gym. And for example, we make it easier for ourselves. We just put out all our training equipment and our trainers so that we know where they are. We don't have to think. And this is a little bit like that. So you can literally just keep going and doing these activities without having to worry about what you're doing. And the other thing as well to say is that when you do 30 days of consistent sales activity, or, apart from one day off, you will start to build up a momentum, which will actually last for much longer. It will last for up to 90 days. So remember that every time you put in effort and consistent efforts behind your sales activity, that results in an accumulation of leads and new conversations and new meetings and new pipeline, which then brings return. So again, in sales activity, looking to generate enough activity to generate more return, generate more interest, and generate more leads and new clients. And this is a crucial part of this training, which is really designed to help salespeople and sales organizations to maximize new leads and new business. Because often, and again, this has been a core specialism and focus of my career, which is helping companies and sales teams I've worked with to receive more leads, to increase new sales conversations and activity. And it's crucial for growth. So I put this in the workbook as well in terms of the difference between B2B and B2C. Now, what are some of the key differences between B2B and B2C, and why am I highlighting these? There are different sales cycles, different decision makers in B2B to B2C. And it's important to think about the path to sale in each. Often in the consumer B2C world, we are dealing with one decision maker, maybe two. In the B2B world today, we might be dealing with up to 8, 10, even 12 people, depending on the size of our deal, possibly even more. So again, it's important to think about how many decision makers we might be dealing with. What's the typical deal cycle timings? And of course, in B2B, business to business, is going to be longer than in business to consumer. Another thing as well is that there may be multiple stakeholders that we're looking to build relationships with in B2B versus B2C, where perhaps it's more straightforward, fewer decision makers, and perhaps slightly less formality as well. Because again, we're not necessarily dealing with a corporation, we're dealing with an individual. And that is different too in terms of certain skills, in terms of the rapport, and like I said, in terms of the level of formality as well. Now, in terms of price points in B2B, generally B2B price points are higher than B2C, but of course it depends on the product. And in terms of the customer acquisition cost, so the cost to acquire new customers, generally higher in B2B than B2C. And what else? In terms of the potential to acquire leads, I would say both B2C and B2B, it's really essential and really important to have new leads and new business all the time. So that's a little bit on the differences in B2B and B2C. Now I'm going to cover off a few key points on some slides before we dive in to the next section of our workbook. So let me just share my screen here, and then we will dive into the next part of our presentation. 2 seconds and we will get this rocking and rolling. So just to say, how is everyone feeling right now about next year, about 2024? Given where we are at, is this something, are you thinking about some of these topics? Are you thinking about your 2024 sales goal and sales ambition? Because if you are not, I can tell you that one of the best ways to really get ahead in terms of sales is around your planning and just thinking. So again, it's super important to do this. So make sure that, again, this training is designed to really get you ahead, because you won't have until after the 1st of January to do this stuff. You'll be ready to go. You'll be thinking about this stuff and planning it and doing it essentially, while other people may still be planning it. But again, it's not about comparison. It's simply about the best that you can do for you and getting prepared. And certainly in terms of sales and more sales, being prepared is a really great way to create more confidence for you, and also to feel much, much better about what you are doing. So again, make sure that with this, you are really clear around what it is that you are looking to achieve in 2024. And if you start now, that will really allow you to really step forward, to really make a difference, and to really start to make progress. Because again, another really important thing around hitting and meeting more of your goals and your targets is to actually get started, is to, when we don't do this, when we wait, when we're waiting for just one more thing to happen, that is where we get caught, and we potentially we lose time, and we lose time waiting for something to happen, which maybe takes longer than we think, or it doesn't happen. And then we altogether just lose that momentum. And then of course it gets really difficult for us to even make any progress at all. So again, everything that I am looking to help you to do is really to get ahead and make progress, because in your sales and your sales time, like I say, your target it's really starting now for your next year. Don't, in terms of this, by waiting, you are simply just creating that extra pressure on yourself closer to the time. And like I shared, many people don't even start to set their target or even start to think about it. And that can really affect the success that you have, because again, you haven't given yourself that runway and that opportunity to plan what you want and to have that vision. So make sure, if you can, make sure that you give yourself the opportunity to do that. So now I'm just going to go and share my screen so that you can see this. So let me just make sure that you can see my slides and my screen. And so let's do this. So now here we are. So I've got a few key points to make around this, which is that sales results do not just happen. Like, they are the results of strategy, and strategy that's planned and executed over time. And if I can give you even some key tips around how you can increase your sales right now, it is to start to understand more about why your customers buy from you, what motivates them. Understand and spend a little bit more time in thinking about what motivates your customers and what they want and what results they want. And then really take as much time as you can to relearn or rethink or review that. What are some of the needs that have come up on recent sales meetings, some of the challenges? Think about serving your customer first, and your interest will return. And as a small business owner, every single sale is absolutely crucial to your growth and success. And I'd like to emphasize this, because no matter how small that sale is, if we get into the mindset of thinking this is just a small sale, again, we don't want to do that. We want to think every single sale counts, and every single sale is getting us closer to our target. And I say this as someone who has sold relatively low value products at times to get to really high targets of over $1 million plus. So again, it's important that we value the importance of every sale, and that we don't focus or prioritize a smaller sale just because we're only thinking about the biggest deals and the biggest revenue. And this is something that a lot of sellers get into. So if we're looking to really increase sales, what are some of the ways we can do this in 2024? We can do this by increasing the number of leads that we have. So new leads, think about where new leads are coming from. How can we generate more of them? We can increase sales by connecting with our customers better. And we can also increase sales by providing more value, getting more proficient, knowing more about our industry, our offering, presenting better, communicating better. Also by increasing sales by investing in ourselves and perhaps our learning and our skill development areas. And for those of you interested in knowing more about one-to-one coaching with me, do make sure that there is an offer at the end of the workbook, but make sure as well that you reach out to me and find out more about the one-to-one coaching that I can help with if you're looking to really massively step forward in terms of your sales results for 2024. Now, next, what are some of the other great ways that we can increase sales? We can ask better questions and we can really go deeper. We can dig into what we're hearing. We can listen really actively and attentively. We can improve our sales through that. We can also look to stand out from from others and really try to solve their needs. And then, of course, we can get better by showcasing the full potential of what we have. And that also means by sharing with more people about what we do, not thinking that everybody knows what we do, because realistically, awareness and reminders are so crucial today. Otherwise, people miss exactly what you're doing. And of course, the ability to tell your story visually, as I am today, can be really important to the right buyer as well. So again, having those great materials to support sales is so crucial, and that could be tip sheets, lots and lots of other things. Another thing that's so important for improving and increasing your sales is getting better at overcoming objections, of course, and we'll be covering that perhaps if we have time at the end in this training. Another thing that's important is ask for a decision and invite the close, initiate the close. Make sure it's clear what exactly your buyer has decided and invite them to give you that decision sooner so that you can know that you've got a qualified lead and opportunity and continue to work on that. Again, no decision is something that in sales is something that happens a huge number of times. A lot of deals result in no decision, and with that, the seller has lost their effort, but most importantly as well, the client has received absolutely no new outcome and transformation, which is one of the things that is so rewarding about sales. So again, also thinking about over delivery. How can you do more for your customers? How can you differentiate yourself by doing more, being more, and simply delivering more in terms of that value? Also, it's important to not fear giving away too much. If we get fearful and into a fear mindset in the sale, again, we may suppress certain things, we may come across as inauthentic, and this can affect our sales results as well. So just to recap, the important ways to increase sales are to stand out, be clear around how you differentiate and what is different about your offering, tell your story as well, use visuals, use content and great materials like slides to support you. Try not to be fearful about giving away too much. Try not to be looking at every single interaction with a buyer as simply a loss of time or resource, because that can affect your sales result. And loyal customers can help you and your brand to really spread the word. So it's really important that you're looking to build and drive loyalty and recommendations in everything that you do. And the way you can do that is, of course, like I said, to really over deliver and delight your clients. So we're next going to look at how to build a lead list. And in your workbook, if you go to page 13 in your workbook, you will find some key tips and information from me, which I have been using and leveraging for many years now. And I've given you a step-by-step process in terms of how to approach building a lead list. And first thing I want to say is why is it important to build a lead list and to work on outbound sales as well as incoming ones? Generally, sales teams tend to prioritize inbound sales, see them as hot leads, and to give a disproportionate amount of their sales time to them. However, this doesn't necessarily lead to more sales and sales volume, because often these are competitive reviews, and often as well, the inbound sales are not necessarily a fit for your offering. So again, that's why it's crucial to build your own lead list. And of course, some of the other ways that you can increase outbound leads and new leads is perhaps you can consider offering a free trial or free offer of some kind. Of course, thinking about how you can leverage social media to really increase and leverage your sales strategy and new leads. Make sure that you also are looking where possible to build your credibility as a thought leader within your industry, and constantly building your knowledge and your learning and reading about your industry. That can be incredibly helpful so that you make great points to your buyers around your industry and really deliver some key insights for them that they may not have had time to research and read. And so the first thing that I'd like to share in building a quality lead list is lock down your qualification criteria. So we're now on page 14 in the workbook. So make sure that you build a better list for yourself. And you want to have a criteria. You want to have ideal clients and a sense of who ideally you want to be working with. So again, you may have incoming leads from a variety of businesses or individuals, and these may not be your ideal leads. But with outbound lead list building, you can really optimize, you can really build a criteria for who you want to be working with and the most valuable clients perhaps for you to have. And remember that you will need for this to build out information such as demographics, such as company size, revenue, some specifics about the companies that you're looking to work with. And then also as well, it's important to think about behavioral data. So what do you need to ask your new potentially ideal clients in order to qualify if they are a fit for you? So again, have an initial criteria on what you will ask and what you need to find out as part of any sales meetings that find and agree as part of your new lead list and qualification. So here's an example of an ideal customer profile. So this is a small to medium business with less than 200 employees, which is in growth. Now, why is it important to be in growth? It's important to be in growth because if you are in growth, you can, of course, generally companies that are in growth have more disposable income to spend on new offerings and new services. So also in terms of location, there might be a geographic location that you would like. And then, of course, in terms of understanding what their problem and needs are, that's crucial. So what is the need and the problem that your ideal customer has, and what are they looking to solve? So this is another version of what we have as an ideal customer profile. A small business with less than 50 employees that's growing fast, revenue of 500K to 20 million. So there's a revenue band in this. Also the area of the company, the roles in the teams, role titles, and specific, perhaps, industry information areas that this company are in. And all of that is a much more detailed ideal customer profile. So this is really specific and should provide you with a very specific set of results as well. Because again, with lead generation, building a lead list, we don't necessarily want immense volume of leads. It isn't just a volume game. It's about finding ideal clients where there is demand and a fit for you to serve them as well. And so here's another one as well, just one more, just to make this really clear. So this is for hospitals and medical practices, a number of staff, location, role titles, areas of the business that we might be looking to speak with in terms of teams. So in terms of a buyer persona, it's perhaps today even better to have more information about what your potential buyer is interested in, what do they care about, what do they want to achieve, and just thinking about some of the problems they may be having day to day and where they're looking to focus. So again, on the left and on the right, two very different examples of this in terms of potential decision makers and how we might have, based on research, got to understand what are the needs, what do they want, and also perhaps what might their background be in their experience. So this is another way that you could design this information. So you could have your name of your prospect, a role title. And again, these might be specific examples that you can build based on motivation of that person, the challenges, the bio, the skills, etc. And with all of this, what you can really do is to simply give yourself that opportunity to be much more specific and to go out there with a clear, ideal sort of vision of who are the clients that you're looking to work with. And with this information, you do searches on social media, you can go to events, perhaps. You can really keep this in mind, and you can have several different types of ideal buyer profile. And again, this just helps you to be very aware of when you meet a particular prospective buyer who is very well suited to your offering. So the next thing, if you're building a lead list, is to really do your homework and make sure that you are with new leads and with organic outreach, that you do some research, that you do find out about who you're speaking with, what is their background, maybe a little bit on Google, understand who that individual is, and tailor your messaging or tailor your direct message or your call to reflect and demonstrate that you have done some pre-work. Make sure that you are not asking questions which you could easily find out online. Sometimes today, sellers will focus a little bit too much on information and easy information, which is already accessible to them online. And here's the thing, it doesn't necessarily build the best rapport with your buyer, because if they know that you could have found this information out online, they may simply feel like it's perhaps a less good use of their time, but it's also importantly a less good use of your sales time, because with the answers and the responses which are just available online, don't necessarily have that much more to go on. And of course, in a discovery and outreach campaign, you're looking to build up more of a picture of who this individual and company is. And I've put in the workbook as well. This is page 16. There are different types of campaigns and outbound and sales campaigns that you can work on. It could be seasonal ones, it could be just ones to generate new leads and increase leads. But know your campaign type, and of course, make sure that you are seeing this overall as a project, a lead generation project. And part of this as well is to really be clear around more personalized email messaging and making sure, like I said, that you are demonstrating that you're interested in the person, not just seeing them as a prospect, a lead, etc. And of course, today you can also use AI and generative text and things like Microsoft Bing and ChatGPT in order to do a little bit of extra research about a decision maker problem, or even maybe some online research. And this can save us huge amounts of sales time, where before we had to spend hours trawling the internet to collate information. So my advice would be take advantage, maximum advantage in 2024 of accessible resources and really start to put them into practice and good use in your day-to-day. And as the exercise for this section, so on page 18 in your workbook, I've got an exercise for you on sales messaging, so make sure you check that out. I've got also some recommendations there on potential platforms. Again, these are not affiliated with me, but it's simply to give you advice and recommendations based on what I do and what I have done in the past to generate leads and more meetings. So with that, we will now move into our next section. So we will be, just before we do move on to our next section though, I just to say that, of course, it's important as well that if you are working on an outbound lead list and campaign, that you have some type of offer, you have something that you're offering. This may be a specific price offer. Make sure you're thinking about your margin and your bottom line, but of course, think about what's your offer. What are you inviting them to do as part of your campaign? Why might they be interested? And just have that extra step so that you can attract even more clients as part of your campaign. And in terms of initiatives and things to do in order to increase your sales overall, and I want to give you as many of these as I can so that you have loads and loads of potential tips and ideas, but consider your customers' business drivers. Look again at your product market fit. Who have you sold to in the past and why did they buy? Make sure that you do have a very well-defined, unique value proposition, and make sure it's accessible and that you have resources available to support why it's so good. And those could be case studies or other things. Think about having consistent marketing strategy for your business. Always be as present as you can be with prospects and clients. Think about what more you can do and really keep them in mind, and so that you can demonstrate that great kind of attentiveness and give them a great experience. And those are just some of the ways to do this. And if you're looking to increase sales in any type of business, how do you currently interact with customers that you have online? And how well is that working? How much do you know about your customers, and how much do you feel you and your business shows a real understanding of its customers? Also, in terms of convenience, flexibility, do you give a variety of payment options? Do you have service options for out of hours? How convenient is your offering for a new buyer? Also, in terms of offers and discounts, consider whether these will apply and be beneficial for your business and increasing sales. Perhaps you can even think about bundling products or creating a referral program so that you can incentivize clients to recommend you to others. And then lastly, in terms of a sales model, a sales funnel model, make sure that you do have some kind of funnel to understand and segment or put customers into order according to what they might be interested in next from you as well. So now we're on section, so this is section 3, book a meeting. So book a meeting. Now, how can you generate a meeting? The way to generate more meetings is to do something different. Like I said in the last one of the recent slides, do something different to increase interest. Perhaps it's an offer, perhaps it's a trial, perhaps it's something that your competitors are not doing, but your buyers will find very appealing. So do something different. Advertising on social media can be a great way to generate new leads and awareness for a limited time, if your budget allows. And then, of course, in terms of calls to action, of course, optimizing your website, making sure there are some great calls to action. It's easy for people to get in touch. And next, it's important to really think about generating word of mouth. So again, how can you build up some awareness, recognition in your local community, local areas? And do you think you're generating a buzz right now and interest by what you're doing? And of course, it's important to stay in touch, have good email marketing to nurture your clients and keep them updated on your latest offerings. And then, of course, optimizing your social media. That is important too, to really increase sales with prospects. And give yourself the best possible brand presence online. So in terms of a pre-call research checklist, here's what's important from a company level on the left-hand side, which is to, look for information about funding, announcements, events, and things of that nature, and to think about what information is publicly available on the company that you're going to be meeting with. Now, in the workbook as well, I've got some notes around making sure that you are thinking about the steps and stages to what you're looking to do. So again, in sales, we want to focus first on the initial step, not just with the end in mind, but thinking about just a message, first contact, generating interest, and a response. Then, of course, we want to think about the dialogue, qualifying. Maybe in stage 3, we're going to disqualify, move them to the next step, or book in that meeting on the 4th step. So again, it's a step-by-step process. And in terms of ways you can do this, I've put some suggestions in here on page 21 in the workbook. And there is an expression, which is that if you don't ask for things, if you don't invite, it's a little bit like inviting the close. If you don't, what is your ask? Your ask is your request. And of course, if you're providing some kind of incentive or motivation to your buyer to take that next step, which could be resources, then again, why do you expect the prospect to take that next step? And have you provided something which is going to be appealing enough for them? So again, we're looking with this step in this exercise to increase the sales opportunities that you have right now and to focus on creating even more opportunities in 2024 for you, which are quality opportunities. So again, developing interest and developing connection, keeping track of the number of times that you discuss your offering with new potential buyers who've shown interest and given you the permission to sell and to really engage with them on what you do. So next, something else really important is your agenda. Set and create an agenda for every meeting. Make sure that you take the opportunity to really give an idea of what you're going to cover on your call. Why does your potential prospect want to attend? Remember that at first, the prospect has a very low level of commitment to your meeting. So again, it's about exciting them, creating that sense of here's the value, here's what they're going to get, to incentivize them further to actually join and, to be at your meeting. So again, it's not taking it for granted, taking it step by step. And next, so I've put in here some key tips for running a great discovery call. And again, some of this is a recap, but you want to, like it says on the screen here, to confirm your agenda and look to build a rapport. Make sure you have some questions prepared based on your research, which are specific to this prospect and buyer. And invite them at the start of the meeting to tell you what will make your meeting successful for them. Keep inviting them to tell you what they want, what they are looking to achieve by meeting with you. And that will really help to establish more rapport, to make it more of a two-way collaborative meeting, as opposed to a typical generic meeting where perhaps the buyer doesn't walk away with everything they need. And so next, it's important to think about how can you really build rapport and what tips can you use? So again, remember, an essential tip for starting any sales conversation is to enter the call with a custom sentence. So something that you have found through your research, something which demonstrates that you are different, that you are doing your research, you're really thinking about your buyers, your potential customers, and problems you can solve. And I've put some examples here on the sheet. You can simply create that first sentence and line that you may say on your discovery call to really capture attention attention and generate interest and engagement right from the start, because that's crucial as well. So next, at the end of your discovery call, don't forget to arrange next steps. The reason you want to arrange next steps is really because, again, you've done all the key work to get your prospect on that call. And of course, once you hang up the phone, once that prospect goes, you've lost the momentum, the opportunity to get that commitment. And there's something in sales called micro commitments, which is where we invite the prospect to make a next commitment, and it's about building up micro commitments to get to a larger commitment. So again, we're looking to see what commitment they're prepared to give and to agree that on the call, because again, it's much faster, much simpler, and it cuts out a lot of steps in between the discovery call to a next step. And again, we can't rely on a next step happening until we make it happen. So again, perhaps you want to schedule a demo, whatever you want to do, make sure you schedule the next meeting before you leave the call. So a little bit here now around selling to B2B buyers and C-level executives. So we want to catch interest. We want to be clear. Of course, with the more senior stakeholder, they have even less time. They have more people clamoring for their attention, their time. So they're going to be protective and careful with who they give time to. So if we are looking to engage with senior stakeholders, we're looking to really do even more research, be really concise and specific and clear on our value proposition, why it's value add for them, but also importantly, perhaps doing other research by booking meetings with their team, their reports, and making sure that we really build a picture of what's important to that business before just going to the C-level exec with a clearly generic message. Again, that is unlikely to get us any meeting at all, because many C-level execs simply can see through that type of approach. So again, we really need to take extra time with an executive and perhaps nurture and build that rapport and relationship over time to really justify getting a meeting. So find out what matters to their role and to them specifically, and make sure that you really look to communicate with them based on what you learn. So the next section that we're going to cover here is the ultimate guide to a discovery call and a successful discovery call. Now, there are in your workbooks, of course, there are sections in there as well for you to look at. Now, we are focusing a lot on the discovery call and the importance of having a successful discovery call, because in new sales and generating more sales, this is something which is absolutely so important, because how we do these discovery calls can lead to us progressing the sale, having more quality opportunities and really qualifying them better so that we end up converting and closing more deals. So the discovery call is simply that first conversation after you have engaged with your prospect and they've said perhaps they might like to hear more, that they'd be interested to know more. So questions are at the heart of a discovery call, of course. And how long should the ideal discovery call last? The ideal discovery call is going to be very to the point, very on track, going to give just the right amount of information. It's not going to overrun, and it's typically going to be from 15 to 30 minutes. And this should allow enough time for you to ask key questions related to qualification, but also above and beyond that, to really give your prospect and customer more time to uncover their needs, uncover their challenges, and to really get to know and connect with them human to human, so that they feel that rapport and that familiarity with you. Now, some of the other things to think about are that we need to keep our discovery calls on track, like I said, because if a call overruns, again, we can't guarantee the prospect is going to have more time. And that's why it's about keeping it on track for them and for us, so that we look after everyone's time And of course, that's going to be crucial as well. So in terms of the way that I think about a discovery call and the benefits, there are multiple benefits for us and overall in terms of the part and the role this plays in the sales process. Number one, it's all about understanding customer needs and demonstrating that we are focused on our buyers. Then secondly, the aim of a discovery call is to familiarize ourselves with a buyer's needs, but also to save time and resources by being really focused on, is this a problem you can solve? Is this something you can help with? And it can potentially save so much time and resources to really establish that earlier on and not be afraid to recognize that not every potential sale is going to lead to a close and a sale in itself. How well we establish if there's a fit is crucial. And of course, another important purpose of a discovery call is establishing better credibility for us and our businesses. And of course, positioning our business. Now, we want to do this thirdly on the discovery call, once we've built up some rapport and demonstrated our focus on the buyer, because of course, initially, the buyer is not necessarily going to recognize our credibility and really take that in. So again, I recommend doing that in the middle of the call in more detail. And then of course, once you've had that call, here's the other thing as well. Thinking about after the call, how could you have improved your sales strategy? What was the result of the call? What went well? What didn't go so well? So make sure you record your sales calls, make sure you analyze them. Then next, think about the opportunities as well. So what are the needs of your prospects and can you match them? What do you do? What can you offer that may benefit them? And the last, so stage 6 of this is about building better buyer relationships and really listening, and then thinking and applying what you've learned to turn that into a better understanding of your customer and what their needs are. So again, building relationships all the time. So in the workbook on page 33, you'll see there's an exercise in there for you to do in terms of role play. And again, I've really recapped that what are some of the main goals of a sales discovery call and why it's important to do them as often as you can. Now, another thing to work on as part of a discovery call is your open to close-ended questions. So again, if you have open questions, you are asking what, where, when, and these questions need to be answered in a longer way rather than a close-ended question, which is things like did, do, why. And a close-ended question is to someone that you know less, is actually, again, it's going to potentially cause resistance in your buy. And we're really looking to not generate any resistance, not to be too direct. So again, on our discovery call, we want to build up to more challenging questions. Start off the call with simpler questions. Again, not necessarily ones we can find online, but just some more straightforward, simple questions to get the conversation going. So that's also really important. And then in terms of the discovery call, again, so your buyer should be speaking more than you. Make sure as well that the conversation and focus is going on your buyer. Avoid generic questions. Often, if a question isn't specific, if it's just very open, like what challenges are you having, that's very open and broad. And again, buyers generally might get irritated by having to think too much, make too much effort to interpret that question. So again, also really important to never be pushy or aggressive on a discovery call. Again, we want to, if we can, ask permission to ask a more challenging question, provide some warning, build the relationship, and avoid over-promising. So here are some examples of the starting points for some discovery questions, which you can then personalize, make specific to your buyer, to the teams you're speaking with, and the individuals. So again, these are all initial phrases that you can tweak and adjust. So what are the main roadblocks to reaching that goal? And of course, another important thing to share is that you can, of course, look to collect important information, such as who's involved in choosing software, if you're looking for a decision maker, you can ask those types of questions and gather that information. And sometimes as well, it's important to say that even a phrase such as tell me more about that, or in what way. So sometimes we can just make an observation, make a comment, ask, say something at the end of the response from a buyer to actually keep them talking and to get a little bit more for them to share in a little bit more depth as well. So again, we want to go from the surface level to something more deep and meaningful with a buyer to really build that rapport and connection. I wouldn't recommend asking questions like, what is your budget, too early on in the call. Again, we really want to work up and build up a good picture of the buyer and their needs. And then, of course, at the end, you can build up to discovery call questions such as, how valuable have you found this call? Can we go ahead and schedule a follow-up? So again, lots of questions. And of course, we're looking to qualify. We're looking to pick questions that are well chosen. I've got some examples here to set the stage. So tell me about your company, tell me about your role, what do you do day to day. Again, quite broad, but like I said, be careful not to ask too many of those types of questions, because often tell me about your company is good because it's from a buyer perspective, tell about the company and tell about their role. And perhaps we could add in there, I've done some research, but I'd love to learn from your perspective. What do you do day to day? So making it clear that you've done research as well. And of course, next you can ask, tell me, when do you need to achieve this goal of 5% better efficiency? What problem with this specific area are you looking to solve, and why? And here are just some more kind of questions around this. So why is this a priority for you today? And why hasn't it been addressed before? So questions are important. And let's remember as well that companies rely on increasing sales and reducing costs to provide capital. Sales is literally the lifeblood of the business. Now, in terms of disqualification questions, these will be specific to your role and to what you do. But questions such as these are all relevant. What's your timeline for this implementation? Whose budget does the funding come from? Is this from your department or another department? So finally, as well, making sure that you ask questions to establish key aspects of the process. And of course, this can be crucial in terms of learning about other decision makers within a team, also in terms of things like the contract review process and timings. Even asking questions like this can be very beneficial because it gives a clear sense of what to expect. And of course, from a forecasting perspective, it's really important to be able to communicate and update your business in terms of what is a likely timing for should this deal progress. So all really useful to include here. Other questions as well about next steps. Is this a competitive review situation? What's the process for you actually purchasing our product once you decide on it? That's another much more direct question, which again, towards the end of your discovery call, you can ask. And I just also like to share that in terms of research, it has shown that in terms of the sweet spot for the number of questions to ask in a discovery call, you can see here on the slide that those who are asking 11 to 14 targeted questions per call see a higher conversion and success rate for their sales call. So again, 74% versus asking just 7 to 10 questions or 15 to 18. And then of course, way behind, those asking just 1 to 6 questions see a much lower success rate on that deal. So I put this here as well because again, I really want to highlight that over 50% of prospects and potential leads are not, when you look into it and when you go into it with them, actually a good fit. So make sure again that the discovery call is handled in the best possible way to facilitate a valuable review and that you deliver value, whether that prospect moves forward or not. So again, in terms of this whole process from building a lead list to having that discovery call, we're looking to lock down our qualification criteria, do our homework about who we're meeting with, confirm an agenda and build rapport, discover their pain points and problems in that call, prescribe a potential or several potential solutions at the right point, and then establish interest and confirm next steps. Okay, so here are some examples of open and closed questions and the difference in terms of how those can land, as I said. And again, in terms of prescribing a solution, let's think of ourselves a little bit like a doctor. We want to really understand and listen before we prescribe any type of solution. And it's important to do that before, of course. Now, I'm going to speak next as well. So section 7, we are now at, this is page 37 in your workbook. So what are the key customer pain points? And I've put the 4 major customer pain points for B2B in this section. So page 37 and on the slide here. So productivity, financial pain points, process pain points, and support pain points. These are some of the key pain points in B2B. So again, some of these can be interlinked. It might be that a company is having both financial and productivity pain points. It's not necessarily just one pain point. And in terms of this, we're looking to source and uncover more pain points. And in terms of the importance of this, what if it was as simple to increase your business sale as looking at some basic information or basic stuff that your prospect is telling you, and then helping them to implement more straightforward ideas and solutions from your business. That is how simple sales can be. And that's why it's so important. So again, we're looking to source and uncover pain points. And I'm going to give you just a few examples of pain points right here. And I'm actually going to come off camera just to share some more about discovery and some more about pain points as well. So let me just come back to my main screen here. Now, here's something important, everyone, that in terms of pain points, a buyer doesn't necessarily volunteer a pain point. They don't necessarily say where they need help and what they want help with. And that's because in many cases, your buyer has started to accept that they have pain or frustration in their business, and they may not be consciously aware of needing to change that. They may have contacted you for one reason and one specific problem and not be at all aware that your company and your offering provides a specific solution for them in another area. So again, this is why doing discovery around pain points is so valuable, because that's where unknown needs can come up, and that really helps you to, again, understand if there could be more opportunity to help and work with this client. So we want to ask these pain point questions later in our discovery call. I recommend asking them in about 3/4 of the way through your discovery call. And the types of questions could be things like, if you had unlimited budget, what is the first company or team improvement that you would make in this area? What is preventing you right now from hitting and meeting the goal of getting 1,000 customers, for example? Another question is, you mentioned frustration around this. Can you elaborate? Can you tell me a little bit more around where you think that comes from and how long that's been happening for you? So again, get a sense of how long a problem has been around and why it hasn't been resolved before as well. This can be really crucial. So again, all of these areas are absolutely so important in terms of building better rapport, building better connection with your buyer, and also really serving and helping them. And the next section that I'd love to share more on with regards to this training is really around the engaging with your buyer. So why is it so crucial to really engage and build rapport with your buyer? It's important because here's the thing, if we engage our buyer, we really hold and maintain the interest that they have in us, our products and our solutions, that's going to count for a lot, because again, we need to not just capture interest, but to maintain it. And this is a skill in terms of my methodology that I have developed and worked on. And I have a specific 4-step framework that I teach in terms of this. And so step 1 of engaging is to involve our buyer more. So make sure that we really cut through the distractions when we're speaking with them, make sure that we really listen and ask questions, and make sure that we really focus on them and their needs, and demonstrate that we want to involve our buyer in the conversation. We're not just having a generic discovery call. And that we provoke a dialogue, that we have a question and answer, and it isn't just question, answer, that it becomes a meaningful dialogue with value for your buyer. And the next stage of this 4-step framework, which is in your workbook, page 26, is to ignite. So what I mean by this is igniting is about really initiating emotion and excitement and interest in your buyer. And if you ignite your buyer, you motivate them to solve their problem. You inspire and motivate. And this is important because in sales is about emotion and the transference of feeling. And for your buyer to buy with emotion and feel motivated, they need to have a trigger, like a stimulus, to say, yes, this is an exciting prospect to solve my problem. This is an exciting meeting to really address this issue I've been having. Igniting the buyer is about making them feel empowered to solve their problem and really interested in the solution and what potential future your solution and your company offers. The next thing is to illuminate your buyer. So step 3 is illuminate your buyer. And what I mean by illuminate is to really help your buyer to reach new awareness. And this is where you demonstrate your expertise, your company expertise. You tell a buyer something they didn't know. Again, today's buyers will go online, they will research a lot of information about a specific area they may not have previously known about, and they may have a certain amount of information, which for them may serve, but it's only a very limited amount of detail. And this is where you, and in your sales role and with the information that you have, you can really help them because you have had so much more exposure, so much more experience of this industry. And so even just by sharing with them something they didn't know or didn't realize about your offering, about what they might be thinking of doing, can be very valuable for them. So illuminate by delivering at least one key insight or new piece of information about your offering. And finally, we really want to inspire our buyers. So by inspiring, inspiration is just one of the highest forms and states to get into. And when someone feels inspired, they feel really elated and excited. And so if you inspire them, you help them to feel, again, better about their future, about this compelling new future that they're working towards, whether it's as part of a project for their company, their team, their customers. It could be anything, or even on a personal level and B2C. But it's so important that the buyer feels that sense of this is possible for them. This is a new future, a new outcome, a new result. And this is really where sales is about transformation and helping more clients to achieve better outcomes, better futures through transformation. So it's crucial. It's a very rewarding aspect of sales. And it's simply a reframe in terms of how your buyer may see their problem with no solution to having a tangible solution, which becomes something new for them to implement and apply. And so that is engaging the buyer. And those are just, again, a 4-step framework for you to apply to engage more of your buyers and engage more of your clients around what you do. Now, the next thing I'm going to cover here is going to be in terms of negotiation. And we're now, in terms of this training, we're really working on what are some of the best possible ways that we can help our clients. How do we facilitate and make a sale happen? How can we leverage and really make it possible to achieve more and a sales result? And this is a crucial aspect of sales as well, because once we have qualified, once we have identified there is a fit, we then need to work on what is next. Like, how can we actually turn this potential prospect into a client? So I'm going to teach you a crucial thing around how to negotiate. And this is going to be crucial as well, because I teach that negotiation is about reaching an agreement. And this is why it's so crucial to help a buyer to reach an agreement. It needs to be an agreement between us and between our buyer. And without an agreement, and that it also includes like a contract, we're not necessarily making that progress towards actually creating a new outcome and a new result for our clients. So again, this is why it's so crucial that we learn to negotiate. And there's a section in the workbook as well, which is specifically for women in negotiation. But today on this training, I'm going to be focusing on the main negotiation section, which is page 44. So in this, I talk about how so 6 key steps for negotiation: building value, understanding what we value and our organization may value versus what our clients value, looking to lead the negotiation, looking to impact and change influence the negotiation so that we walk away with either the best outcome or the next best outcome, or even the third best outcome. But making sure that we walk away with a good deal is so crucial in negotiation. So again, we don't want to cave. We don't want to give away anything which is of high value to us and going to be expensive. And we want to achieve the best possible deals and outcomes. We want to plan to win. And part of doing this is by strategizing and planning really well. So we want to do this. And in the workbooks, so this is on page 45, I give you some tips on preparation for negotiations, maintaining rapport. Of course, in a negotiation, you need to maintain that rapport and that connection with your client across the negotiation and to not fall out with them. Be clear on anything you can offer, which might be low cost for you to offer, but high value. Demonstrate the value as well. Make sure you identify and maintain relationships with key stakeholders. And of course, have your walkaway point if an agreement is not reached and it's not a beneficial deal. And finally, if there are things that you are being asked for, that you ask for something in return. So again, we don't want to simply give away things in the negotiation. We want to maintain a little bit of power and ask for things in return so that it's a win-win deal. Now, that was a rapid journey through negotiation and some key tips. And the next section that we're going to focus on is section 9, which is actually closing the deal. So closing the deal and the sale. And this section is crucial because this is about thinking about the importance of the close and the sale. And of course, without the close and the sale, we don't necessarily walk away any result. Now, as I shared in sales, there is always a certain amount of deals which do not result in a close and a won deal. But we want to, where we can, increase our conversion rate and make sure that we don't lose any sales. And part of this is getting better about how we overcome and address the objection. So objections is something in sales that we need to expect, we need to look for, and we need to be confident in overcoming. And when actually you look into it, there are a limited number of objection types. So typically related to time, money, price, and then perhaps also in terms of the decision power and who is responsible and if the person is empowered to actually decide. Those are some of the typical objections. But when we really learn and get to grips with all the types of objection and how to handle them, it becomes much more straightforward to improve our sales. And when we see that an objection can be simply how somebody buys, that they need to object and raise objections in order to ensure there is no misunderstanding. So again, objections are also a great way for us to address any misunderstandings in that a buyer may have built up around our offering. So here on the screen, we can see a few types of objections, like your product doesn't meet our needs. And with objections, empathy is powerful. It's important that we recognize and acknowledge the objection. And if you go to page 49 in your workbook, you'll see I've got a step here for addressing objections. So it's important that we acknowledge the objection and respond to it, that we isolate and confirm if that is the only objection that a prospect has, and then of course that we handle and directly address it. Finally, we want to seek out if there are any more objections, because missed objections can lead to objections that are then raised at the end, and we can keep facing multiple objections. And if that's happening, sometimes we can get overwhelmed and of course lose the sale. So we need to focus on mindset. We need to focus on handling and responding to objections, and we also need to keep the dialogue going. So again, an objection is an opportunity for us to engage with our buyer, help them to take the best decision, recognize that our role is to support, facilitate, advise, and help them ultimately to take that final decision with the right information, and to make sure that, of course, from a buyer perspective, buyer remorse can be something they experience. So they are wary of making the wrong decision, losing money and getting no results, and all kinds of other things. So again, we need to really recognize that to overcome objections, we need to build trust and rapport, and we need to resolve the doubts and worries that our client has. And I've put in the workbook as well, so this is page 51, some key ways that you can close deals. And part of this is going to be by focusing how you actually, once you've addressed the objection, you then need to really think about how you can start to build towards closing the sale. So again, the close is going to be very important. The first part of your close would be to invite the sale, and then of course to start to work on what technique will you apply to close your sale. So I've put in the workbook, there are over 20 different types of close, which I've put, and the reason I've shared all of those is for you to select and vary the types of close that you use. So again, the same close technique would not typically be applied in every single sale. It's important to select the close that you believe is most suited in this case. So different examples of different closes. The alternative close, if there are two very good options that a buyer could go with, make sure you go through the pros and the cons and then provide them with that alternative. The next type of close, another key type of close, is the calculator close. Help them to calculate the savings they're going to make, what they will receive in terms of ROI and returns if they go ahead. And that's the calculator close, and that's very powerful as well. Another one is the opportunity cost close. So again, what's the missed opportunity that they will not get if they don't move forward, or what's the opportunity that they will achieve if they do? Quantify it, make it really clear in terms of numbers, and that is a very powerful type of close. Another one is in terms of the the close, such as, the summary close, where if you summarize what has been established in the sale, summarize the buyer's reasons for going ahead and why this is a good decision for them, help them to recap, help them to remember the key points of the conversation. Another will be the question close. So ask a great question, such as, let me ask you, if you decided to go ahead with this, where can you see yourself in 9 months' time? Let me ask you, if you decided not to go ahead, where can you see yourself in 9 months' time? And help them to contrast that. The now or never close is, again, a very powerful type of close, which is where you make it clear that if they do not move forward and go ahead, here's that realistically, will that buyer actually take action? And here's the thing, that often buyers say they will move ahead with something, but then they don't end up actually doing it. So again, it's really important to help them to recognize that while they're there on the call with you, you can hold them accountable. But of course, once the call is over, that will be difficult for you to hold them accountable. So there are some tips on closing. And of course, my recommendation is to vary your close. Make sure that you test out different closes, but also make sure that you select a close. Be conscious around, here's what you're going to apply and how you're going to simply start to initiate that close. So again, think about the first part of the close and learn the closes. Really try to understand what's the difference and what they can do for you. So the final part of this training is for you to have a familiarization on AI and sales and the potential of AI for sales today. So in today's world, AI, generative AI, such as ChatGPT, Claude, Bard, and many other platforms exist to provide savings in terms of time, resource, and other even ideas. And today in sales, that can be so useful, where, like I said before, the salesperson and the sales team had to do all of this themselves. Now we can leverage AI. And the best part is it's often free. So with AI, what we want to get really skilled at is understanding what AI can do for us in terms of collating information, collecting information, and then personalizing it. So again, we want to always make sure that it has our unique tone, our voice, and that it is still representative of us and our brand. But of course, leveraging AI is something that many business owners are doing today. And it's a little bit of a wave, of course, for businesses today. So I would recommend, again, leveraging AI where it makes sense to get something done faster. Think about who you're looking to reach with AI, and particularly generative text. AI needs context. It needs to understand, what information you're giving it, what output you require, and of course, it needs to also think about who it is in your request, in your prompt, and who the audience is. So again, be very clear and concise, and look into, there's something today called prompt engineering, which is all about how you can create and generate and draft the best possible prompts. So make sure that you look into that, learn more where you can, and think about if AI can support you. LinkedIn now has an AI feature for posts, so you can optimize your words and your text. So again, there's less and less excuse now for not leveraging AI, for whether it's for messaging, sales messaging, creating a pitch, creating a powerful direct message, enhancing a title in a blog or a post that you're writing, and so many other ways. So highly recommend to check out more AI trainings in terms of how to leverage AI. And then, of course, thinking from a sales perspective as well, how AI can help you with perhaps understanding more on customer needs, customer problems, and the research piece. That alone is a massive piece which AI today can help us to simply address in a much, much better way with huge volumes of information. So I really hope this training has been beneficial. This has been the Crush Your Sales 2024 sales training. If you have enjoyed this training, make sure that you comment below, make sure you subscribe to my Instagram, which is at Camilla Hasler. Follow me on LinkedIn. Make sure that you check out my YouTube channel as well and see the other videos that I have. And of course, if you would share this with a friend, if there's even one person who you think could benefit from this, again, this is the way that others find out and discover about my training. So make sure, and really appreciate it if you do just take a moment to even share it on a story on social media and Instagram. So with that, I'm wishing you phenomenal success in 2024 with your sales. If there's any questions that you have, if you'd like to reach out, make sure that you follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn, send me a direct message or email the support address for Awesome A-Team Sales. And with that, I wish you a wonderful start to the year for your sales and crush your sales now.